It is indeed an honor for me to introduce my dear friend who once said, because I was born in the South, I'm a Southerner. If I'd been born in the North, the West, or the Central Plains, I would be just a human being. Well, lucky for us. As the only child of Ernest and Truma Edgerton and an otherwise large family of 23 aunts and uncles in Bethesda, Clyde was captivated by the stories he heard. Did I tell you about the time? Begins many of our conversations, complete with the affectations and mannerisms of whomever he recalls. Borrowing a line from one of his characters, and I see we were thinking alike, I read the piece that you have in today's program, and it's remarkably like mine. He says he's got all this stuff from way back in the past pulled up close, real close. And we feel that closeness through Clyde's 10 novels, a book of advice, and a memoir. 3 of his novels have been made into movies: Rainey, Walking Across Egypt, and Killer Diller. Stage adaptations have been made from Rainey, Walking Across Egypt, The Float Plane Notebooks, Killer Diller, Where Trouble Sleeps, Lunch at the Piccadilly, and The Bible Salesman. His short stories and essays have been published in New York Times Magazine, Best American Short Stories, Southern Review, Oxford American, Garden and Gun, and other publications. And the list goes on in terms of his accolades: Guggenheim Fellowship, Lyndhurst Prize, honorary doctorates from UNC Asheville and St. Andrews Presbyterian College, membership in the Fellowship of Southern Writers, the North Carolina Award for Literature, of the Thomas Wolfe Lecture, which I attended with him last year, 5 notable book awards from the New York Times. In fact, if he hadn't been inducted this year, it just would have been outright wrong. Right now, Clyde is the Thomas S. Keenan III Professor of Creative Writing Distinguished Chair at UNC Wilmington, and that is where my story with Clyde begins. The Clyde I've come to know is not just a famous author, widely regarded as one of the great Southern writers of our time, but he's also a gifted musician and painter. The Clyde Edgerton I know has used his national celebrity to promote human discourse through the arts in Wilmington, the state of North Carolina, and across our United States. But most importantly, the Clyde Edgerton I know is a humanitarian, a man who values truth over comfort. And borrowing another line that he's used in his essay, and I'm going to close with this: and you know, whatever you leave behind is your history, and it better be good, because your history longer than your fact. I'm so pleased to be one of your friends. I'm so pleased to join beautiful Christina and to represent your beautiful children and our great friend Annie Gray Johnston. Congratulations, Clyde. Well deserved. Well deserved.
Very nice, and I appreciate it immensely. I'm honored to be here. I'm sorry Carl is not going to be able to be with us. I got some clearance before I said that, but I think Carl would be okay with that. It's an attempt to be funny. I want to thank very much my daughter for driving from Durham. She surprised me, Catherine, and my wife for being here. Catherine brought me this little flower. I'm inspired by them daily and learn from them, and I'm lucky. And that connects to the 3 words that I brought up here to talk about: family, friends, and story. And my 3 words expanded into a short talk, which I'm going to not do because of what I've heard. I wanted to say most of what Peter said, and he got me there. And friendship is so important. I've gotten so much from George in my literature. I once sent him every month a $2 check, and he wouldn't cash them. It put them away. But I'm very, very lucky. Speaking of luck, and I will say that no stories would have come without my family, and the culture within which I grew up served me, nourished me, but also wounded me. As those of you who grew up in the culture of the South that I grew up in. In terms of friends, no stories without. Also, in terms of friends, Shelby Stevenson here. I said I wasn't going to do this, but I am do some of it. Shelby read my first story way back, long ago, when we were teaching at Campbell, and he offered encouragement, and he didn't need to. But he did in a good way. Steve Smith, who's here, this place which is here, this community which is here at Weymouth nourished me when I lived here for a short while, and when I've been around in different places in Laurinburg and Buies Creek. So many friends, George Hovis, my family, Rosalie and Doug, Catherine. I know I'll miss people, but George Terrell, as I mentioned, George Hovis, David McGirt and his family, Nancy. David has been a great friend from way back, and people who've listened to me and put up with me in so many ways. Nancy over here from way back. So I'm just, Sam Reagan, Joan and Jim at the bookstore, and the literary place here. Louis, Robert, and Shannon, and people at Algonquin Books, Lee Gill, Tim, and Larry Brown, and on and on. Now, I'll say this finally about art and story. We gain identity through story, through art. We gain meaning. We find ourselves. And there's a certain amount of uncertainty in art, which is okay, and which we should embrace. We tend to, in so many of our endeavors, push uncertainty away. We look for certainty and buying and selling. But art brings us together in ways that generate respect. And in the days that respect of others becomes a political issue, art can help keep us as a nation of peoples free. Thank you very much.